Shalom and welcome back to another episode of News Bytes. This week's newsletter is called The Coming of the Son of Man. Be watchful. It's on Luke chapter 21 verses 25 through 38. I'll get started. From Eliyahu. Shalom, friends. We are living in the very time when Yeshua said we need to be watchful, because the end of this age is nearly upon us, and the Son of Man will be returning soon. You would think, with so many signs of the times in evidence, that there would be increasing interest and concern for spiritual matters, to be ready for his return. But no, quite the opposite is true. What we are seeing as we consider the attitudes of those around us matches the prediction of the scriptures for these times to a remarkable degree. As if the Bible writers had traveled forward in time and actually had seen our world today. For example, there's this. But know this, that in the last days grievous times will come. For men will be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, arrogant, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, fierce, no lovers of good, traitors, headstrong, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, holding a form of godliness, but having denied its power. Turn away from these also. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 5. Indeed, the vast majority are so completely driven by the attitudes listed above for these last days that they have little time or concern for their spiritual lives at all, let alone being watchful for the soon return of the Messiah. Sadly, this seems to be true for professed believers as well as those who profess little or no faith whatsoever. Statistics show that 70% of the population in the USA claim to be Christian. Based on that figure alone, one would expect a significant amount of conversation about spiritual matters here in America. Yet, according to a recent social study report in the New York Times, and reprinted below, only 7% of Americans talk about spiritual matters on a regular basis. That, of course, means that 93% of Americans do not talk about spiritual matters as part of their regular conversation. So what are Americans talking about? Well, it turns out that men and women talk about different things, and God is not listed. We are told that men talk about 4 things: sex, sports/hobbies, maybe their jobs, and dirty jokes. We are told that women have a variety of things they talk about: relationships and sex, celebrity gossip and news, also general gossip in their lives, being updated with their friends and their stories. So, how did the date go with so-and-so? Did you ever find that gift for your boyfriend, etc.? Their boyfriends or husbands, personal things concerning themselves, and on, etc., etc. Forgive me if this sounds judgmental, but wow. Is this picture shallow or what? Now measure that in the light of Yeshua's words. The good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings out that which is good, and the evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart brings out that which is evil. For out of the abundance of the heart his mouth speaks. Luke 6:45. In other words, what you talk about, or fail to talk about, is a pretty good indication of who and what you are on the inside. Based on what the vast majority of people talk about, it becomes clear that they are mostly concerned with selfish and shallow pursuits, and are very rarely, if ever, talking about their Creator or their spiritual obligations to Him. We might expect this from people who are unbelievers, but what about the majority religion in America, Christians? This is a real shocker, but only 13% of church-going Christians claim to have a spiritual conversation even once per week. This is proof positive that the Christian church system has failed both God and His people. This doesn't mean the scriptures have failed, that God has failed, or that His Son has failed. It means that real believers need to start earnestly seeking after the authentic faith or be swept away with the lukewarm church. That's why we're here and why you are reading this newsletter. All of this apathy of believers is part of the sign that the Son of Man is at the doors. That you are reading this shows that you're different. You care about him, and you are on the watch for his return. Rejoice, he is coming soon. While it shames me to admit this, I am definitely guilty of shallow, selfish, and vain talk, for sure. And even some of the things on this list. But I think we all are, in a way. I know gossip is a big thing for a lot of people, and that's found in a lot of congregations. And in James, he says that the tongue cannot be tamed. And that's because the change has to come from inside, like we read in that verse. And if you want to change that, and there's something you need to work on or something you need to change, you're not going to change it just by dwelling on it and trying, forcing it. You have to seek him, and you have to focus on Yeshua. You have to focus on what he wants. And when you focus on him, the change comes naturally. It comes in your heart. And then everything will kind of line up and fall into place. And that's really all I have to say. I didn't really have a lot to say on this. It's a very good newsletter. So thank you for joining me. Like and subscribe, leave your comments below, and watch the meeting over here. Thank you.